Everyone knew Saddam Hussein. He was the dictator who ruled Iraq with an iron fist. He was feared, written about in newspapers, and shown constantly on television. But almost no one knew the woman who lived in his shadow. Sajida Talfah was his first wife and his cousin. She gave him 5 children, but Saddam betrayed her. Without even divorcing her, he married another woman. This act enraged not only Sajida, but Saddam's entire family. What followed was simply unimaginable. This story is about love, power, jealousy, and brutal revenge. In this video, you'll discover what life was really like inside the home of the Middle East's most feared tyrant, and what his first wife did after he betrayed her. The story of Sajida Talfah is the story of a woman who quietly accepted her fate until she found herself at the center of a family scandal that even shook Saddam Hussein's closest circle. Sajida was born into a respected and conservative Iraqi family. Her father wasn't just a well-known officer, he was the brother of Saddam's mother. That meant only one thing: their futures had been decided long ago. Their marriage was arranged when they were just children, a common practice in tribal societies where bloodlines, honor, and social status come before everything else. Sajida was a quiet, modest girl, raised with discipline and traditional values. She wasn't ambitious. She didn't dream of fame. But she did have one dream: to escape poverty. She wanted to wear beautiful clothes and to live in comfort. She didn't long for love. She longed for security and status. So when she was told she would marry Saddam, she accepted it without protest. At the time, he wasn't yet a dictator, just a young, ambitious member of the Ba'ath Party, spending his early years in exile in Egypt. They were married in 1963 when Saddam returned to Iraq. He was 26 years old. Sajida became his first and official wife. Back then, she was still working as a schoolteacher, and it seemed her future would be quiet and uneventful, living in her husband's shadow. But everything changed as Saddam quickly rose through the ranks of power, first as deputy secretary of the Ba'ath Party, and later as president of Iraq. And Sajida changed with him. She was no longer a quiet teacher. Now she wore designer clothes from Paris and Geneva, expensive jewelry, and layers of makeup. The dark-haired Iraqi woman slowly transformed into a blonde with unnaturally pale skin, literally. One woman who once met the First Lady of Iraq recalled, "She wore so much white powder that it looked like someone had thrown flour on her face. But behind the glamour there was emptiness. Although she gave Saddam 5 children, 2 sons and 3 daughters, their marriage lacked affection. It was a union of obligation, not love, and everything she had gained, the status, the palace, the luxury, felt like it could disappear instantly, and one day it did." After their wedding, Sajida's life changed forever. Just yesterday, she had been a simple schoolteacher dreaming of a better life, and suddenly she became the wife of a man rapidly climbing toward absolute power. First a member of the Ba'ath Party, then Deputy Secretary General, and finally, by 1979, the President of Iraq. By then, Saddam and Sajida already had 5 children. Their eldest son, Uday, was born in 1964, followed by Qusay, and later their daughters Ragad, Rana, and Hala. To the outside world, they appeared to be a perfect family. Carefully staged photographs showed them on boats, walking through gardens, or doing homework with the children. State media used these images to portray Saddam as a leader and a caring father. But behind this staged perfection was a much darker reality. Sajida played her part. Like the ideal Arab First Lady, she stayed silent, loyal, and always in the background. She was rarely seen in public with Saddam, never gave interviews, and seldom appeared in the press. Most Iraqis barely knew she existed, but make no mistake, her silence was not peace. It was survival. Behind palace walls, Sajida lived in what could only be described as a gilded cage. She had status, yes, but no freedom. Her entire life depended on Saddam, emotionally, financially, and politically. Every palace she lived in, every piece of jewelry she wore, and every shopping trip to Europe existed because of his power, and she knew all of it could be taken away with a single word. Inside the family, she took responsibility for order and oversaw the children's upbringing. Uday, the eldest, was both her favorite and her greatest challenge. Spoiled, volatile, and used to getting whatever he wanted, he would throw tantrums over denied gifts or cancelled trips. Sajida tried to control him, but she had no real authority over his ambitions. Still, it was through Uday that she would one day strike back. With her daughters, Sajida was strict. Ragad once recalled that her mother rarely showed emotion. Discipline came first. Smiling for a photo wasn't joy, it was duty. Sajida believed structure and control were the only way to protect the family's reputation. Her only real ally was her brother, Adnan Khairallah. He was not only her blood relative, but also one of Saddam's most powerful advisors. He became Iraq's Minister of Defense and was often described as Saddam's right hand. He could walk into the president's office without invitation and was one of the very few who could speak honestly with Saddam. When Sajida felt humiliated, when rumors swirled about mistresses or affairs, she turned to Adnan, and Adnan would go to Saddam. Sometimes those talks ended in shouting matches, but for a while Adnan kept the balance. He was her shield, but even that shield couldn't protect her forever. The arrival of another woman and Saddam's second marriage wasn't just a betrayal, it was the destruction of everything Sajida had spent decades building. A life she had silently endured, played her role in, accepted without question, was now being taken away, and Sajida knew this time it wasn't just her pride at stake, it was war. Moments like these make your heart race. When betrayal hits, when emotions boil over, you can feel it in your chest. That sudden rush of stress. It's almost physical, and even if you're not married to a dictator, you've probably felt that too. When things get overwhelming, try using a health app called Heartscape. It works as a heart rate monitor and stress tracker. Just place your finger over your iPhone camera. Within seconds, it measures your pulse. You'll see detailed health patterns, including your energy levels, stress, and daily readiness. Over time, the app reveals trends, what's improving and what needs attention. Download Heartscape now from the App Store. Follow the link below this video. In the late 1970s, another woman entered Saddam's life. Her name was Samira Shabandar. She wasn't just a fleeting affair, she became the main threat to everything Sajida had ever known or built. Samira came from a respected Baghdadi family. Her father was a merchant, and her mother was a well-educated woman from an elite background. Samira was married to a senior Iraqi Airways official and worked in the scientific field. She was elegant, refined, and by many accounts more cultured and graceful than Sajida. With her light skin, refined features, and European manners, she was nothing like the strict and reserved first wife. Saddam fell in love, so much so that he ordered Samira's husband to divorce her. Under pressure, the man gave in. As a reward for his cooperation, he was later promoted to a high-ranking position in the airline. Saddam married Samira without ever divorcing Sajida. This was a devastating blow not only to Sajida's pride but to the entire Talfah clan, her powerful family. Sajida was furious. She felt humiliated, cast aside by the man to whom she had devoted her life, a man she had given 5 children, supported for decades, and stood by during his rise to power. But she wasn't the only one enraged. Their son Uday, the eldest, was equally furious. He didn't just see this as an insult to his mother, he viewed Saddam's new wife as a threat to his future. He feared Samira might bear children competing with him for power and inheritance. He couldn't allow that. Tensions in the family reached a boiling point. Sajida's brother Adnan Khairallah, one of Saddam's closest allies, tried to intervene. He openly opposed the new relationship and second marriage. He defended his sister's honor and demanded that Saddam show her respect. In their inner circle, this was seen as a dangerous move. Not long after, Adnan was dead. The official explanation? A helicopter crash due to mechanical failure. But years later, one of Saddam's former bodyguards confessed. Explosives had been planted on the aircraft and on Saddam's orders. Adnan had spoken too openly and challenged Saddam too boldly. For Sajida, this was a final warning. If even her brother couldn't survive a conflict with Saddam, she would have to act carefully. But inside her, something had already changed. Rage, betrayal, and humiliation were burning, and that fire would erupt one day. After Saddam Hussein married Samira Shabandar, the atmosphere inside the Hussein household became tense. Sajida was humiliated, and her brother Adnan was furious. But no one felt the betrayal more personally than Uday, Saddam, and Sajida's eldest son. He watched as his father drifted away from his mother. He saw Samira by Saddam's side at public events and watched the media mention her as the new companion of the president. And Uday understood. The stronger Samira became, the weaker his own position, his inheritance, his influence, even his connection to his father. It was all in danger. He couldn't let that happen, but above all, he saw his mother's pain. Sajida didn't yell, she didn't argue, but behind closed doors, her silence said more than any words. Her pride was wounded, her place was taken. She didn't give Uday direct instructions. She didn't have to. He knew exactly what she felt and what he had to do. Uday knew who had helped arrange Saddam's meetings with Samira, a man named Kamel Hana Gegeo, a valet and trusted inner circle member. In the family's eyes, he had made the new relationship possible. To Uday, Kamel had become a symbol of betrayal, and Uday decided to send a message. In October 1988, something shocking happened during a formal event held in honor of Suzanne Mubarak, the wife of Egypt's president. In the middle of a glamorous evening, surrounded by diplomats and family members, Uday suddenly attacked Kamel. According to witnesses, the scene was chaotic and brutal. It was not a private act. It was deliberate, public, and unforgettable. Even those familiar with the harsh realities of Saddam's inner circle were stunned. The incident made its way into diplomatic circles, but despite the seriousness of what happened, the matter was quickly covered up. The victim's family publicly asked for mercy. There was no trial. Uday was briefly sent to Switzerland under the pretext of reflection. But soon he returned, and Sajida, she said nothing. She didn't comment, didn't appear. But everyone understood this was her revenge, not with her hands, but through her son. Uday had acted for her, and in Saddam's house, even when a woman is silent, she is heard. After the public humiliation she experienced because of Saddam's second wife, Sajida's life changed dramatically. Officially, she remained the First Lady of Iraq, but in reality, she vanished from public view. Then she no longer appeared beside her husband at events or accompanied him to palaces, meetings, or state visits. A new woman took center stage, Samira Shabandar. Sajida seemed to disappear. She faded into the shadows, but not into oblivion. Her retreat wasn't due to defeat or submission. It was fueled by rage, disdain, and bitterness. Her enemies and even the public may have thought she lost, but in truth, Sajida had simply changed her battlefield. Rumors began to swirl. Sajida had left the country. It was said she went to Geneva. There, in the capital of luxury, she spent her time in boutiques, shopping for designer clothes, jewelry, and cosmetics. People who saw her during those years described her as a woman in expensive furs, with a powdered face and styled hair, stepping out of Dior and Chanel. Her face was said to be so thickly covered in white powder that it looked like someone had thrown flour on her, as if she dreamed of having the fair skin of European women. Her appearance became a mask, hiding the fury inside. But the loudest whispers were about the money. There were rumors that Sajida transferred massive sums to Swiss banks and allegedly deposited gold and jewels looted from Kuwait. Of course, no official records ever confirmed this. But at the time, few doubted that Sajida was more than just a scorned wife. She was now a woman surrounded by wealth built on fear, blood, and the tears of ordinary Iraqis. She didn't give orders. She wasn't the one who carried out torture. But every ring, every dress, every Hermes bag she owned was bought with money earned by a regime her family ruled with an iron fist. Sajida was angry. She felt betrayed, but she didn't go quietly. She lived in exile like a queen wrapped in luxury, maintaining her silence and waiting for fate's next blow. Her story wasn't over yet. When the war began in 2003 and American forces prepared to bomb Baghdad, Sajida Talfah was no longer in Iraq. Just hours before the first strikes, she fled the country. Reportedly, she escaped with two of her daughters to Mauritania, a small country in West Africa, where the family found temporary refuge. But this wasn't just an escape, it was a calculated move. Sajida knew everything was falling apart. Her husband, her sons, and her entire family were in danger, and while she officially held no political power, behind the scenes she remained a mother, a wife, and a woman with resources, connections, and money. After leaving Iraq, Sajida did everything she could to protect her sons. Uday and Uday were still inside the country, and during that time, according to various reports, Sajida actively coordinated their protection. She helped finance the family's security movement and safe houses. Even from abroad, she had access to family funds and used them to preserve what was left of their influence. After 2003, Sajida's name reappeared in the news, but this time in a very different context. Her eldest daughter, Ragad, was living in Jordan, and according to the Iraqi government, was involved in supporting the remaining loyalists of the regime. Officials claimed that through Ragad, and possibly with Sajida's help, underground networks were being financed, former officers, Ba'ath Party loyalists, and those who refused to accept defeat. Of course, none of this has ever been officially confirmed, but Iraqi intelligence has repeatedly alleged that Sajida played a role in coordinating support for remnants of the regime. They believe she may have been a key link between exiled elites and underground resistance. So even after the fall of Saddam's regime and the death of her husband, Sajida Talfah, did not disappear, she remained in the shadows, managing resources, preserving connections, and perhaps continuing the fight for what little power her family had left. Over the years, Sajida's image became surrounded by rumors. After Saddam Hussein's regime fell, journalists and witnesses began to speak about what had long been whispered behind closed doors. Some claimed that she was harsh, temperamental, and prone to revenge. In the Hussein household, people allegedly feared not just Saddam, but also his wife. Former staff members later described her as strict and intimidating, especially when she felt disrespected. There were even stories about her attitude toward animals, portraying her as cold and severe. But were these rumors based on truth, or were they simply a reflection of the fear surrounding anyone close to the dictator? As is often the case, the truth lies somewhere in between. In many ways, Sajida was both a victim and an accomplice. She was a woman whose marriage had been arranged in childhood, a woman who built her life in the shadow of a powerful husband, a woman who watched as another took her place, and a woman who perhaps endured betrayal and humiliation in silence, because in that world, silence was survival. Still, it's impossible to ignore the reality of her privilege. While the Iraqi people suffered under the weight of tyranny, Sajida lived in extraordinary comfort. Her expensive jewelry, designer clothes, and luxury trips to Europe came at a cost, paid by those who lived in fear and poverty. That's why public opinion about her remains deeply divided. Some see her as a prisoner of her own gilded cage, broken and powerless. Others see her as a part of the same machine that brought suffering to millions. So, who was Sajida, really? A cold woman incapable of compassion, or a mother and wife trying to survive in a world where emotion was a weakness? After the fall of Saddam Hussein's regime, his first wife, Sajida Talfah, disappeared from public view. Her current whereabouts remain a mystery. It's as if she vanished into thin air, like she never existed. What is known is that shortly before the US bombing of Baghdad began in 2003, Sajida fled Iraq. According to different reports, she first sought refuge on the coast of Mauritania and later moved to Qatar with one of her daughters. The other two daughters, Ragad and Rana, were granted protection by the Jordanian royal family. They still live in Amman today and have consistently refused to hand their mother over, despite pressure from the Iraqi authorities. One of the last public rumors about Sajida erupted in 2015. Arabic social media exploded with the claim Sajida Khairallah, the widow of Saddam Hussein, has died in a Jordanian hospital. Several media outlets ran with the story without verifying the source, but the very next day, Saddam Hussein's family officially denied it. The official Facebook page of Saddam Hussein al-Majidi published a harsh statement, accusing liars of spreading falsehoods. Saddam's eldest daughter, Ragad, also issued a personal statement. "In the name of God, my mother and all our loved ones are in good health. Don't believe everything you read." She went on to say that a disinformation campaign had been launched against their family. There was no truth to the death reports. At the time, Sajida was believed to be around 78 years old, although some sources claimed she was 71. Today, in 2025, she would be about 90. Is she still alive? Most likely, yes. But where is she? Is she living under a false name? in total isolation, constantly looking over her shoulder? Or is she quietly enjoying old age, surrounded by the remnants of the luxury once granted to her by Saddam? Her children are almost all gone or in exile. Uday and Qusay were killed in 2003. Her youngest daughter, Hala, lives in seclusion. Ragat and Rana continue to defend their father's name from abroad. Sajida has lost everything: her country, her power, her children, her husband, but she has kept one thing: her silence. She retreated into the shadows, leaving the world without the answer to one haunting question: what is it like to be the wife of a dictator, and can silence ever be forgiven? Saddam betrayed his first wife. He didn't just endanger their marriage, he shattered the entire family. But her silence spoke louder than any war. She didn't scream, she didn't cause a scandal. She took her revenge quietly, through her son, her influence, and the shadow she cast over the house of Hussein. She lost a lot, but she remained standing, and somewhere still in the shadows lives a woman who was once humiliated before the entire Middle East. What do you think? Was Sajida a victim or part of the same brutal system? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoy stories like this, subscribe for more hidden histories they never teach in school. And of course, don't forget to like this video. Thanks for watching.